In an unknown house, we see a pile of books in a boy's room. The boy starts talking about how he has always loved comics since he was a child, and we see our protagonist reading something while smiling. Our protagonist was reading a comic from some anime while laughing, and his future self narrates that every time he read comics, he noticed something. That something was that the main characters simply weren't cool or interesting. He explains that instead, the truly incredible ones were the characters who usually seemed indiscreet but hid their true powers. And because of this, since he was young, he wanted to be a secretly powerful character, and so time passed. With this, the young man developed the special ability to help others in secret, and then we see the boy pushing a cart with an elderly woman. The lady looks back and surprisingly sees absolutely nothing and questions why it was so light when there was no one helping her. The woman continues talking that this hill was usually a challenge when pulling the cart alone, and we see our protagonist hiding behind a wall. She continues her path and finishes by saying it was as if someone was pushing from behind, and the boy says it was close, and this time she almost saw him. The boy adjusts his glasses, stating that it was better to stop for the day before being caught helping more people. Leaving the place, he thinks he might help the man at the fruit shop the next day, and on the day marking his 10 years of helping people in secret, something happened. We see a huge bus about to hit our protagonist while he was crossing the street, thinking he made it through another day. Suddenly, the boy is startled and wakes up in an unknown place with the same appearance as before, but sweating in fear. Looking around, he finds himself in something resembling paradise and questions where he was wondering if he had just been hit by a truck. However, a woman with an angelic appearance and wings appears, saying that this was a world of swords and magic. The angel, who resembled an angel, explains that she anticipated the boy's arrival, stating that he had a noble, pure soul. The one explains that her name was Hersha, and she was the goddess of war, waiting to grant our protagonist a special new life. Hearing this, the boy questions if the woman was really waiting for him and asks if she knew him. Hersha, happy with a smile on her face, affirms that she knew him since the boy was one of the few saints in the world who helped others in secret. The one explains that many gods were charmed by the boy's good deeds, and for some reason, he becomes downcast. The boy says he tried so hard to remain unnoticed, but couldn't hide it from the gods, which was a pity. Hersha listens and stays silent for a moment, then laughs, saying the boy really was a person of integrity. Putting her hands together in prayer, the girl says that she, Hersha, the goddess of war, would grant the boy a divine blessing, and he could become anything he wished. He could be a warrior, a demon king, or even a dragon, and if he wanted, even a king. Realizing what was happening, the young man's eyes light up, and Hersha asks what he would like to become. Our protagonist, enthusiastic, says he wanted to be a secretly powerful weakling, and Hersha doesn't understand the wish at first. Desperate, he starts repeating that he wanted to become a secretly powerful weakling and wanted the woman to transform him now. She remains somewhat intrigued, not fully understanding the boy's wish, and he clenching his fists as he always wanted this but never succeeded. The boy remembers helping people by fanning them secretly or even cleaning the streets without anyone noticing. But irritated, he says that wasn't being a secretly powerful weakling and was too trivial for his real goals. He starts imagining defeating a dragon, stating that a true secretly powerful weakling is always underestimated but unleashes their strength when necessary. In his imagination, the two heroes who were saved get nervous, questioning where that boy got such strength. Hersha, still shocked by the whole situation, comments that she understands as he wanted to be someone with great strength, but underestimated in hiding his powers. She says that the boy will be reborn in a new world as someone of humble origin, and hearing this, the boy becomes extremely happy. Hersha adds that the young man will be stronger than any warrior, demon king, dragon, or any other being, and hearing all this, he becomes even happier. However, if his powers are discovered, his heart will explode, and the boy is incredulous at this. Before he could stop her, Hersha was already concluding, saying that just as he had wished, the boy really should hide his powers. However, there was no more time, and she begins a prayer even as our protagonist begs her to stop because he doesn't want his heart to explode. Now in the future, the boy is sitting in a forest explaining that it has been 2 years since he came to this world, and he thinks that the goddess didn't understand his request. But the boy affirms that now it doesn't matter, and beside him, we can see several gigantic beast wolves. The boy celebrates, saying that none of it matters since there he is the strongest being in the world, and thus one of the beast dogs moves to attack the boy, staring at him. However, in an instant, we see multiple cracks from blows on the ground while we see the bodies of all the beasts that were there. Even though he is 20 times smaller, the boy managed to defeat the monsters, and then thinks that honestly, even with the debuff, he couldn't complain about his powers. Looking to the side, Yuria notices that there are 5 more beasts, and the animal, realizing its presence was noticed, panics and starts running. Urian, seeing the beast running, is incredulous and complains that it is very pathetic, just watching the wolf distance itself. The boy also thinks that fortunately his heart doesn't explode when the beasts discover his power, and that is very good. In the blink of an eye, he appears next to the monster, striking it from behind and sinking the beast into the ground, defeating it instantly. The animal can't react, simply falling to the ground while the boy celebrates that it was finally the last one remaining. He begins to analyze the flowery field he is in, saying he doesn't see any more people or beasts there, so everything is finished. Urian thinks he might return to the village while staring at the beautiful sky in front of him. After a while, in a beautiful village illuminated by the sun's rays, a female voice calls out our protagonist's name. A girl with red hair and a broom cleaning a sidewalk questions where the boy was, and he calls her Era, saying he had a stomachache. Era, concerned, says he should have told her since he knows how weak he is, and she had already told him not to walk alone. The young woman also says that several beast wolves roam the entire area, and that's why he needs to be careful, and Urian, even sad, apologizes. Seeing the conversation, 2 more children appear, saying that lately they haven't seen any beast wolves. The children are happy, saying that it was usually very difficult to cultivate with those monsters around, and probably all of this was thanks to the priest's prayers. Finally, one of the children wishes never to see those beasts again, and hearing all this, even without gaining merit, Urian is happy. However, after a short period, a muscular man with brown hair grabs our protagonist by the hair, calling him a brat. He throws the poor boy far against the wall, stating that the boy should never walk alone again, and asks if he understood. Era quickly runs to Urian, wanting to know if he is okay while worrying about the boy. The man says he accepted the boy because he was young, but the boy is short, weak, and useless. The young woman continues to question if the boy is okay, and Urian can only groan in pain, pretending he is suffering. Trying to stay in his act, he apologizes to the man who takes care of them, thinking that his mission to hide his powers that day was a success. The cruel man then orders all the children to start sweeping now, and promptly they agree, running afterward. This so-called director questions if they all memorized the song, and those who didn't would be thrown to the wolves. Outside near the square, while sweeping the street, all the children start singing the song about being happy even though they are orphans. Being forced to do that, they continue trying to keep a firm expression, singing that they are being taken care of and are happy. Even Urian and Era join in the song, thanking the villagers for sharing food with the poor children. Seeing this, some villagers gather as an audience and watch the children's song, becoming happy. The people say that the children are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, and everyone is impressed, saying that the director is a really admirable person. One of the villagers says he will gift the orphans with pieces of chicken, and all the children become extremely happy. At dinner, the director was enjoying a feast of chicken and meat while drinking beer. However, the only thing the children had were boiled potatoes, and Urian becomes extremely irritated by this. The boy asks why they receive potatoes and have to eat on the floor while the director continues to enjoy his food. The orphan girl asks Era why, even though the lady had given them chicken, they only received potatoes. But the boy next to her says she should shut up and just eat, since it was better to eat potatoes under a roof than to starve in the streets. Still, the little girl remains sad, and Urian becomes extremely irritated, cursing the director and grinding his teeth in anger. However, Era calls everyone's attention and takes out some boiled eggs, saying it was a special treat added to that day's dinner. All the other 3 orphans are extremely impressed, salivating since they are not used to eating something so delicious. Excited, Era says she got those eggs from the lady who had given them chicken, and they should eat before the director sees them with it. Everyone becomes extremely happy, commenting that Era was the best, and another orphan says she wants to eat it now. Urian thinks he hasn't eaten boiled eggs in years while continuing to salivate, and Era calls his name. The girl offers her boiled egg to the boy, saying he could also eat if he wanted, but the boy is a bit hesitant. Era states that the boy was very thin, and if he got any thinner, the director would definitely kick him out. However, Urian refuses, saying he was fine and she could eat her egg because nothing would happen. But with this, Era gets irritated, trying to force the boy to swallow the food, saying he had to eat or he would be thrown out, but even so, Urian doesn't eat anything. Era's stomach growls and the girl becomes totally embarrassed, and with that, Urian takes the opportunity to laugh and then says she could eat. Smiling, our protagonist looks at the girl while thinking about when he arrived in that world. We then see a memory of Urian in that village being called a rat and assaulted by someone. The man says the boy should stay away from the shop since he was scaring all his customers, and Urian is left lying, writhing on the ground. Leaving the place, the man says he will finish off the boy if he finds him there again, and Urian thinks that life as an orphan was pure hell. No one offered any protection, and violence lurked around every corner because people are false and cruel. He thinks he may have partially chosen this, but it was simply too hard for him to endure alone, and then an unknown girl approaches him. The girl says the boy must also be an orphan, and crouching next to him, introduces herself and offers a potato to the boy, asking him to come with her. Era explains that the director was not a good man, but at least there the boy would have shelter and food without much worry. Urian is somewhat incredulous about this, and suddenly the girl's stomach growls with hunger. Holding hands with the boy near the orphanage, the girl asks the director to accept the boy because he was a young boy. She also says the boy would work hard for the director, and she guarantees it with all her might. Returning to the present, our protagonist continues with a sparkle in his eyes, watching Era and thinking that her kindness was unwavering. The boy takes the egg from the girl's hand and forces her to eat quickly, saying that the 2 of them would go to the magic school together. Urian explains that the school accepts people of any background, and he heard that everyone there can feast on all the delicious food they want. Hearing this, the other two orphans become extremely excited, saying they also wanted to go there. Era, like an older sister, hugs all three children while saying they would all go to the magic school together. She also comments that there they will enjoy the succulent meals and study instead of working so hard. And finally, the girl concludes that they will overcome this together and go to the magic school as a family. After a while, we see the director calling the children, saying he has good news for them, and all the children go to him. The man says that Era will be adopted that day and asks everyone to congratulate the girl, and Urian is shocked. The girl starts crying, apologizing for not being able to stay and take care of all the boys. However, the two boys who were not Urian ask her not to say that since they were happy for her. However, the director was not finished speaking, explaining that he also had more good news and calls Urian. With a terrifying expression, he goes to the boy, stating that the boy had been selected as a sacrifice for the wolf god, and congratulates the young man. Hearing this, Era panics, telling the director to wait since this was not what he had promised, as the man had said he would take care of Urian if she agreed to be adopted. However, the man continues with a terrifying expression and asks Urian if he knows why there haven't been any wolf beasts lately. Our protagonist says he knows, but the director interrupts, stating that what he was thinking was wrong since the reason the beasts haven't appeared anymore is because, with a demonic expression, he says they have been feeding the wolf god regularly because the beast prefers the flesh of children. The director says that Urian was weak and small, so he would never become a great worker. Instead, his sacrifice would protect the village, and he asks all the children to congratulate Urian, and the boy thinks this is why the director keeps the orphanage. However, Era becomes even more desperate, calling the man and begging to be the sacrifice instead of the boy, continuing to ask the man to keep Urian alive. But a punch comes her way, though for a moment, the man hesitates, saying he couldn't hurt his merchandise. Still, he tells the girl never to say anything like that again, and she becomes extremely nervous. In a threatening manner, the man says that if the girl says something like that again, he will feed Urian and the others to the wolves as well. Finally, the director says that except for Urian, all the other children should go outside and sweep immediately. In another place with a crown of flowers on his head, the boy wonders what he should do at that moment. Bored, Urian asks if he should kill the wolf god and go on a secret journey. Breaking his thoughts, someone calls his name, and looking to the side, the boy is shocked by the scene he sees. Looking toward the door where he was, Urian sees Era with her hair cut short, approaching him. Worried, the boy asks what the girl is doing there and what happened to her hair. Era laughs, asking what he thinks, then explains that she cut it herself to look like the boy. She also says they don't have time to talk, asking the boy to change clothes with her immediately. While taking off her coat, the girl says it is girl's clothes but will fit him since the boy is thin. Urian is startled, asking why she is doing this all of a sudden. Smiling, Era looks at Urian with a firm expression and says she will be the sacrifice for the wolf god. Hearing this, the boy is shocked, asking if she knows what it means to be a real sacrifice. With a somewhat sad smile, the girl says she knows since her younger brother was a sacrifice. Our protagonist is shocked, and the girl calls his name, saying that when she first saw him, she thought her brother had come back to life. The resemblance was extremely impressive, and that was probably why she felt the need to take care of the boy. The boy still hesitates and is shocked by all the information flooding his mind, only saying the girl's name. Holding back her tears, Era says she doesn't want to see her brother's life taken again and is asking the boy to run away as quickly as possible. Finally, what was stuck in Urian's throat comes out, and he says they should simply run away together because she shouldn't offer herself as a sacrifice. Sadly, Era says they will find the two of them since adults are much faster than children. With her head down, the girl comments that she has a good idea since when the director sees her hair cut, he will definitely beat her a lot. Era says that Urian knows that when the director starts, he can't stop beating the children, and if our protagonist escapes at that moment, he will at least manage to get out of the village. The young woman goes to the boy, removing the crown of flowers from his head and asking him to please live for both of them. Era also says that apparently the family that was going to adopt her was not good, and she would rather save the boy than live in such a place. Extremely irritated, Urian thinks that these are not the words a 10-year-old child should say, and that he possesses immense power and still cannot do anything. But at that moment, surprising both of them, the director arrives wielding a knife, and Era has an extremely distressed expression. The man says the girl's name and asks what happened to her hair while holding the knife tightly. Scared, Era turns around saying she can explain, while Urian watches the weapon in the man's hand, wondering why he has it. Something happens, and our protagonist becomes extremely distressed, and at that moment, the man asks the girl what she has done to herself. In an act of desperation and hatred, Urian calls the girl's name, and power begins to form in his hand. But something happens, and the boy's heart starts to beat faster, and a sharp pain begins to afflict him. Realizing what is happening, the boy only feels his heart hurting, while starting to deny that it is happening and becomes angry with himself. He remembers the moment when Hersha had said that if he were discovered, his heart would explode. Looking to the side, Urian sees that Era is being grabbed by the neck by the director while spitting blood and groaning in pain. The deranged man, seeing the flower crown on the girl's head, says he finally understood everything, because she wanted to be sacrificed just like her brother, and Era continues to struggle and cry out in pain. This lunatic, crazy director begins to laugh for some reason, saying that the girl should wait because he was going to tell her something interesting. He reveals with a terrifying expression that he is the wolf god and that he killed the girl's brother. Without remorse, the man states that he threw Era's brother's flesh to the wolf beasts and sold the boy's organs for a good price. Smiling, the director also says that the child finally meant something dead, and such honor was too much for such a useless orphan. Still holding the girl by the neck, he adds that the girl's brother was a good boy until the end because he had said he was happy to become a sacrifice. Finally, the director concludes that the child was indeed a good boy, still laughing, but he notices that Era is no longer moving, questioning if she is dead. Looking to the side, he faces Urian, who is watching the scene with a desperate expression of fear. With a cold look as if not caring, the man informs Urian that his sister is dead. However, the director says that the boy should not worry since he will join her very soon. As Urian continues to remember all the happy moments he had with Era, in which the girl was a great sister to him, our protagonist feels anguished. Urian feels completely desolate, empty inside, but asks the director what he is waiting for. The man is somewhat confused, never having expected that from the boy, and just asks what he said. We return to the moment when Hersha gave the boy his powers, and the woman asks why he wants to be a secretly powerful weakling. She says that a warrior or a demon king seems more appropriate, then asks if it is just to keep the powers hidden from others. Our protagonist replies that a warrior or a demon king must use their powers for humans or demons. But he didn't want that, and Hersha remains somewhat silent, just observing the boy. Returning to the present moment, Urian says he wanted to use his powers to save the people he loved, quickly delivering a blow that decapitates the director. With the enormous strength he had, along with the director's head, the top part of the church shattered, and with Urian's blow, the whole sky opened up. The lifeless body of the director lets go of Era, who apparently is already in a better place, and the girl falls to the ground. But before she hits the ground, our protagonist quickly goes to her, holding the girl's body. Completely desolate, the boy says he acted too late and apologizes to his sister for it. However, he notices something, and widening his eyes, Urian realizes that the girl is emitting some groans and is probably still alive. He smiles happily, and with the enormous strength he has, uses his power to heal the girl instantly. Various green particles appear around the girl, healing her wounds, and Urian thanks God for not being too late. Looking at the sun illuminating the roofless church, he accepts his fate and begins the process. Our protagonist starts to close his eyes, stating that he has no regrets. However, even after a while, nothing happens, and the boy wonders why he is still alive. Looking at the director's body on the ground, he begins to put the pieces together and supposes that this is the reason he is still alive. If a person dies without discovering his powers, Urian's heart remains intact. Our protagonist thanks the goddess because, thanks to her, he managed to reincarnate in a new world. And he managed to save Era and her siblings from that cursed, psychopathic director who only harmed children. Since that day, 4 years have passed, and we see our young protagonist in front of a demonic beast with deer horns. Urian stares at the beast with wide eyes, while the monster, with its demonic expression and red eyes, stares back at our protagonist. For some reason, the boy gets scared and thinks he forgot to drink his morning milk, which is why he has that expression. Even with the demonic beast in front of him, the boy doesn't care about the monster and then gets irritated for not having grown much in the last 4 years. The monster, seeing the boy's complaints, says nothing and just moves to attack the poor boy who was trying to calculate the average height for someone aged 13. Taking advantage of the moment when he was irritated, our protagonist uses his strength and with just one punch, manages to destroy the monster's entire stomach, splitting it in two. Seeing the body of the shattered beast in front of him, the boy starts staring for some reason at the animal's skull lying there. With an embarrassed face, he wonders if eating horns would make him grow taller since the boy remains short even though he eats well. Finally, he concludes that, as always, he remains the strongest in the world, and already in a church in the middle of a forest, someone is calling Era and Urian. The boy and the girl are already well grown, and the person says that they are both old enough to take the admission exam for the magic school. The person is a nun named Arlen, and the woman, who is somewhat elderly, asks if the children have prepared well. Our protagonist also thinks that Sister Arlen took in all 4 children from the orphanage after the director's death. And after the woman's question, Era replies that yes, thanks to the woman, they are well prepared, and the other 2 siblings wish their family members good luck. With a smile on her face, the nun says that it is very good and affirms that there must be a reason why God took the director but left the 2 boys alive. Concluding that she hopes the Lord's blessing is with the 2 of them for the magic school admission exam. The 2 boys thank her, saying they will pass. Urian explains that the magic school was the place they all dreamed of reaching when they were in that terrible orphanage. And it is also the place he has been waiting a long time to go to, and thinking about it, he tries to control all the happiness he is feeling. The boy says that the last 4 years were very boring, remembering the moments he faced various beasts and gigantic monsters with ease. Because all he did was secretly kill monsters, but now people will openly despise him, and the boy continues with a small smile. Since that's what the fantasy world and magic school are about, a protagonist who is always underestimated. Releasing small laughs and shouts of joy, the boy concludes that he is very excited, waiting for all this to happen. The actual magic school was a school founded by the royal family, and it was a huge place with many rooms. There they nurture talented individuals regardless of their status to defend the people and common citizens from monsters. And today is the day of the magic school admission exam, and we see a noble named Chris with orange hair stating that the school is incredible. The boy, diverting his green eyes to the side, notices the presence of some people and says that, as expected, most of the others have blue brooches and are students from the nobility just like him. But for some reason, the noble gets scared by something when he looks at someone and notices a person with a red brooch who is the princess of the royal family. Nervous, the boy starts to find it amusing because he says that this year's admission exam is no joke and is very competitive, considering the number of people. However, we see Era talking to Urian, asking him not to let his nervousness affect him. This sudden conversation distracts Chris, and looking to the side, the boy sees that those people were wearing a black brooch. At that moment, Era was walking extremely excitedly, stating that she and Urian needed to act as usual, but the boy says that the one who was nervous was her. Some laughter can be heard, and our protagonist diverts his attention, wondering what it was, and looking to the side, he finds the situation he had been wishing for. Chris, the noble, was saying that their statuses were not taken into account, but questioning how such lowly creatures could even dream of entering that school. Two other people with blue brooches also start mocking Urian and Era's black brooches, questioning if they even knew how to read and calling them poor. The mockery doesn't stop, and the arrogant nobles claim that the two will be eliminated anyway, and Era starts to get stressed hearing all that. Amazingly, our protagonist is getting happy, saying that this is how it should be in the classic storyline of a character with hidden strength. However, Era just shakes her head, trying to stay calm because she is holding back all her fury, stating that she wouldn't care about it, and then turning away. The girl averts her gaze from Chris, walking in another direction, and seeing this, Urian gets confused, questioning what she is doing. But the girl remains firm, saying that her brother should stay strong and ignore all those foolish people. She explains that for those kinds of people, social status had more value than the human being itself, and that was disgusting and extremely repulsive. Urian asks the girl to wait for him and starts following her, thinking that all of this was a waste since it was the situation he wanted and imagined for years. An old man then says that the 29th admission exam would start now, and we see a place that looked like a battle arena where the test would take place. The noble director of the Royal Magic School, named Mages, says that the exam was simple, and as students of the magic school, the goal of the students was to protect people. Mages concludes that in this admission exam, the fundamental abilities of all the students with the sword and their magical powers will be tested. While listening to the lecture, Urian continues to hear the voices of all the people mocking him for wearing a black plebeian brooch. A man named Gariumbi, who has a blindfold covering his eyes and dark hair, is the fencing exam instructor. Riambi says that for the test, all the students have to do is use the training sword in front of them to cut the target behind him in one go, and then the man demonstrates the test, quickly cutting the training dummy with his sword. Some students, seeing that the teacher had cut an object so far from himself, are impressed because he cut it as if it were a piece of paper. The man takes a list and says that everyone should come when he calls their names, and then Riambi calls the name of a person named Keen. A girl with white hair who had been seen earlier and is part of the nobility seems very nervous, and then the girl responds that she is there. Teen stands in front of the training dummy, and Professor Riambi walks up to her side, then stating that she could start whenever she felt ready. Still nervous about the whole situation, the girl asks if she will be disqualified if she doesn't manage to cut the dummy in one go. Riambi responds that she won't be since they don't have any high expectations for her. The man says that she could be at the same level as the other children anyway, so she didn't have to try to show everyone something special. Tien says she understands, and in a completely awkward manner, as if she couldn't even hold the sword properly, she attacks the dummy incorrectly. The teacher notices that the girl only made a scratch and didn't even manage to cut halfway through the dummy, saying that in that case, you would call the next person. The next person he calls is Chris, and the boy also manages to cut only halfway, then calls another person named Rishal, who also manages to cut halfway. Riambi calls one more person, who is a girl named Era, the sister of our protagonist whom we know. Nervous, the young girl says she is there, while her brother tries to calm her down, saying that it is okay, and she will manage it easily. Urian says he thinks the criterion to pass was only if you could cut half of the target, stating that the girl could do that easily with her skill. After that encouragement, Era says she can do it and thanks her brother for supporting her at all times before heading towards the dummy. Ryubi then declares that the girl can start when she's ready, and Era prepares by getting into a fighting stance and gripping the sword tightly. One of the nobles watching says he understands that anyone could apply but doesn't understand why they allow commoners to take the test. The girl gets completely irritated, sighing and recalling memories from 4 years ago, remembering that in the end she failed to protect Urian. Determined with her goals, Era gets angry and then strikes the straw dummy, easily cutting it in two. Even the teacher's mouth drops open in surprise as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing, and Urian, seeing this, keeps smiling as he watches the girl. The nobles in the audience are also completely shocked, saying she was the first person to cut through it all, even with a black brooch. Era states that now she will be the one to protect her brother Urien, because the boy was especially weak and needed her. Ryubi is silent for a moment because an enchanted rod was placed in the middle of that target. And even if the students attacked with all their might, they couldn't have cut it at all. To cut it, she would need to strengthen the sword with mana, but doing so is difficult even for fully developed adults. Still, this girl did it unconsciously, and looking at Era, the man sees that beside her, Urien was approaching with the girl. He thinks that the girl is extremely talented and calls her brother, stating that he is next for the test. Our protagonist gets into a fighting stance with the sword while staring at the straw dummy and tries to concentrate to control his powers. Again, Ryubi says that the boy can start when he's ready, and the teacher wonders if the girl's brother is like her. But like the great actor he is, the young boy attacks the straw dummy, practically doing nothing to it. All the nobles look at that as if they had already expected it, and even the teacher is a bit disappointed. They continue laughing at the boy, saying that he didn't even cut half, which was expected since he had a black brooch and commoners are weak. Ryubi notices that the boy is not as talented compared to his sister, calling the next student for the test, and all this makes Urien happy for achieving what he wanted. After a while, after the test ends, all the students are in front of a target, and the teacher declares that it is the magic test. Teacher Jai is in charge of that test, and the woman will ask all the students to use a wand to hit the target with magic. A small, cute student says that he still can't use magic, like most of the students there, and the teacher, smiling, responds that it's okay, because that wand can create water even if the holder can't control magic. And then she says that one by one they will shoot using that object. The woman says that the first student to take the test will be Chris, and then the student, with all his arrogance, says he will go. Quickly, feeling full of himself, the boy grabs the magic wand and uses a water attack, hitting the target squarely, and Ji says it was excellent. The boy continues to be full of himself, and some people beside him say that was expected and start congratulating him because he is very good. The teacher declares that he can return to his place, and now the next one will be Urien, and Chris walks away, feeling accomplished. Our protagonist raises his hand, saying he is there, that everything will be fine, and that he can do it. The teacher asks the boy to hold the magic wand and step forward, but when he's about to take it from Chris' hand, the boy drops the wand. With his ego extremely inflated, the boy doesn't accept a commoner getting close to him, and thus throws the object on the ground. He says that our protagonist shouldn't dare stand while receiving anything from a noble, and calls the boy an inferior commoner, leaving Urien shocked. Era says our protagonist's name, feeling apprehensive, and teacher Jai says that the boys shouldn't fight with each other. However, crouching down and picking up the object, our protagonist tells his sister that it's okay, thinking that thanks to that jerk, everyone was now looking at him. Many people continue smiling at our protagonist, knowing that the boy would fail the test, and thus Urien concludes that he would fail the test just as he had planned. Again, he positions himself in front of the target, raising the wand, ready to cast the attack with the least force possible. The boy notes that thanks to this, he will become the perfect hidden strength character while continuing to smile proudly at himself. But accidentally, for some reason, an enormous water spell, much larger than the previous one, comes out of the magic wand. Seeing this, the boy is completely shocked, wondering what had happened since that wasn't his intention. Era and the teacher are in shock, while the woman says to wait since something happened with that wand. But before she can finish her sentence, all the students scream as they are completely shocked and impressed by what they just witnessed. Our protagonist is sweating profusely with fear because he didn't want that to happen. Looking at the wand given by the teacher, the boy realizes he accidentally broke it, saying afterward that he was screwed. Seeing a commoner manage to break a magical object just by using it, everyone is in shock. The nobles, including Urien's sister and the teacher, just observe the boy, not knowing what to say and trying to understand the situation. Chris and his friends wonder what happened, while the orange-haired noble is totally worried, with his ego inflated and not wanting to be outdone. They question how the magic tool exploded and if it exploded because that commoner's mana was so strong, and at that moment, Urien thinks he has a problem. However, one of the nobles offers a solution, stating that the tool was at fault and it must have been defective after being used for so long. Chris supports the idea, saying there is no way a commoner would have destroyed a magical tool, and hearing that, our protagonist sees a way out. Afraid of being outdone, all the nobles agree, stating that a commoner wouldn't have enough magic to break a magical tool. People buy into this idea and continue to support that the tool broke and the commoner was very unlucky, and thus our protagonist is extremely happy. Looking at the wand in his hand, the boy says that the tool was very weak because it broke right after he used just a little bit of his power. The boy thinks he has just become a hidden strength character and can't be caught right now, so he won't let his guard down. After a while, the director says that the last test involves forming a team of 3 people and going into the forest to hunt a magical bear monster and bring back its tooth. The old man says that it doesn't matter if you have good swordsmanship or a lot of mana. It won't help if you can't even face a monster, so they will prove their worth. Hearing this, our protagonist questions if the final test is really just about hunting monsters, and his sister goes to his side, calling him. The girl says that they are one step away from their dream, so they will do their best until the end and pass, not giving up despite any adversity. Hearing that, Urian smiles, filling with pride for his big sister, and then the boy agrees with the girl, saying that they will strive until the end. Then finally, the director announces that he will reveal the teams at that moment, and that the people whose brooches emit the same color of light will form a group. On Era's black brooch, a strong light begins to be emitted, and the girl, observing it, notices that the light is turning reddish and then wonders what team she is in. Then a young boy with white hair says that he found the girl and that they are in the same team, and Era notices that his brooch is also red. The boy is accompanied by the royal princess, and he asks Era to join them since the three of them will head to the forest right away. Seeing the two nobles, Era just agrees, and Chris becomes envious because she and the boy are in the same team as the princess, saying that the commoner was very lucky. Seeing this, our protagonist thinks it's good because fortunately his sister is in a team with strong people, which will help her pass the exam. Before leaving, the young girl greets Urian, telling him to stay strong to pass, and the boy waves back, just saying goodbye. However, after his sister leaves, the boy wonders why he hasn't received any light, and behind him, some nobles start mocking him. Urian thinks it's good since he will be ignored, but the boy questions if he will have a team, and suddenly a voice appears beside him, saying they finally found him. A boy with gray hair and a girl with white hair approach our protagonist, stating that their team doesn't have a color. The boy asks if our protagonist's name is Urian, and at that moment, the girl beside him remains silent, just shy about the situation. The boy says he was observing Urian during the test and introduces himself as Rishal, asking them to do their best in this test. The girl beside him introduces herself as Teen, but continues to be shy, and our protagonist greets her, thinking that having a team is a relief. However, two nobles with purple glowing badges notice Urian's team and say that black and green brooches are on the same team, laughing at that. They also say that it was Rishal's fourth time taking the test, and he was a very untalented guy, which was expected from a commoner from the suburbs. And that girl teen was a noble called the Abandoned Noble, continuing the mockery with the two poor kids who do not react. While hearing the laughter, Rishal and the noble girl become extremely uncomfortable, making them sad and downcast. Seeing this, Urian questions himself about what is happening, looking at his teammates. Our protagonist thinks he is with a repeater and an abandoned noble, and looking at the other group laughing at them, the young boy thinks the situation is perfect. Smiling, he looks at his team, stating that they will manage to pass, so Rishal and Teen, hearing this, smile, showing they are impressed. Rishal goes to his friend Urian, saying that all this was expected from the boy and that he had misunderstood. He states that our protagonist is confident and appears calm even among the nobility, and even as a commoner, he would like to have those skills. Rishal adds that Urian must indeed be admitted to the school, and hearing all this, the boy is somewhat confused but agrees with the boy. Teen, still nervous, asks if they can pass with so much difficulty in the test. She says she did poorly in both the magic and fencing tests and is not confident if she will be admitted to the school. Our protagonist talks about the fencing and magic training and realizes that those were tests to pass the school. The boy remembers the moment he used his sword to cut the dummy and used the wand to cast magic. Urian becomes completely nervous, sweating and in despair, thinking he did poorly in both tests and is even more screwed. Our protagonist recalls the moment when Era told them to do their best to pass and get a better life. Urian falls into total despair and a crisis, stating that he would disappoint his big sister, and he doesn't want that. But Rishal, who is confident, says that everything is fine because they still have a chance to pass. The boy explains that it is not something he is proud of, but he has experienced from taking the test 4 times, so he knows that even failing both tests, it is possible to pass. Because the hunting test gives the most points, and if they combine their forces, the 3 of them can easily pass just by completing the last test. Urian feels extremely relieved, thinking he will be able to pass along with his sister, but Tina asks why Rishal said that with such confidence. After a while, an enormous forest with gigantic trees and a sun illuminating the whole place can be seen. After all that confident speech, Urian thinks that in this way they won't pass, and we see the 3 kids running from a huge fire-breathing bear monster. During the chase, the commoner Rishal pleads with the noble girl to attack the bear since she is stronger, but Teen can only run and apologize. After a long time of running, the 3 were deeper in the forest, and Rishal states that they have escaped, saying that the test was more brutal than he imagined. Urian thinks that to be admitted, he has to hunt the bear monster, but there is no way to do that with these 2, looking at his teammates. Our protagonist thinks that if he were alone, he could hunt even 100 of those beasts and wonders what he should do. Rishal thinks that this way they would all fail and therefore need to think of something immediately. The boy says that they all had their own difficulties, but he didn't want to fail this year since it was also his last. So they would just take the beast's molar, and upon hearing this, the other 2 boys get confused. Rishal explains that the test description was to hunt a bear monster and bring its molars, but they couldn't hunt because they were weak. And that's why the boys would only bring the beast's teeth, stating this with confidence. Urian gets even more confused, questioning if it was possible, and Rishel crouches, citing knowing a way to make it work. Looking at the creature in the distance, the boy explains that if Urian could observe, a monster always has its teeth showing. And the boy says that if Urian and Tien listen to him, they will be able to get the molars even if they can't kill one of the beasts, and the two become extremely happy. The boy explains that he was lucky this year because bears are the easiest monsters of all in the hunting tests. He takes a bag, asking Tien to pour all the liquid inside the bag over the girl's body. However, hearing this, the girl gets confused and Rishel explains that it was deer blood because bears are extremely sensitive to smells, and they will take advantage of the beast's distraction. Nevertheless, the girl gets nervous about the whole situation, trying to explain that she was not good at running and apologizing once again. Even so, opening the bag, Rishel says it was fine and that he already expected this to happen anyway. And with a cold look, he says that the bears will ignore him and Urian if they attack when the beast is eating the girl's body, and Tien gets even more nervous. Then they will take this opportunity to get the tooth while the poor girl is being devoured. However, our protagonist gets angry, grabbing Rishel's wrist and preventing him from opening the bottle. He questions if the boy was really telling the girl to die in vain. For some reason, Rishel maintains his firm expression, questioning what the problem was and if Urian didn't want to go to school with his sister. The commoner says they couldn't do anything about the sacrifices, freeing his hand afterward and immediately opening the bottle again. He questions if the boy could catch the bear with another method besides this, and he would never succeed no matter what he did. Rishel also says that he could because he was of a lower class and was therefore determined to follow through with his cruel plan. The young man says that unlike the nobles, the commoners are not born with mana, and that's why they, the lowest class, should unite. Rishel says it would be good if the two of them passed by sacrificing a noble since they would never care about her because she was an outcast. The boy adds that they could use her however they wanted, while Tien, for some reason, starts to almost cry, remembering something upon hearing that phrase. A memory comes to the girl's mind of the moment her mother said she heard that the girl had failed the test again. The woman says that the girl's older brother, Ricky, was excellent and she was starting to doubt if the two of them were really blood relatives. Tien, hearing this, becomes extremely sad and downcast, and the woman adds that she really was the shame of the Count's family. Finally, the girl accepts her fate, but Urian says that she had been abandoned and ignored, but there will still be a time when the girl can shine. And it wasn't for Rishel to decide another person's value in such a careless way, and upon hearing this, a noble girl becomes extremely surprised. However, seeing that his friend would not agree with the plan, Rishel quickly throws deer blood over the two boys. And with coldness in his eyes and malice, he says that Urian should die too, and smelling it, the bear moves. The beast, spitting fire and with hundreds of teeth in its mouth, rushes at our protagonist and Tien to kill him. The girl is completely panicked, not knowing what she should do. However, Urian remains still and just smiles, thinking that this was his chance. Fearing for her life, Tien continues to scream, trying to think of an idea to save herself, and looking to the side, she notices something. Observing our protagonist, she thinks that the boy was very weak, and they would all die if things continued the way they were. And so, taking her wand in hand and changing her gaze to a determined one, Tien says she needs to kill the monster alone. The creature, with all its monstrosity, roars, leaving the girl terrified and in shock for a few seconds. Frightened, the young woman begins to remember when her mother said she was a disgrace to the family, and thus clenches her teeth in anger. With the bear's attack, the girl uses her wind magic to defend herself, blocking the blow. Activating more magic in her wand, the girl shouts that she is also a noble despite everything. And then with her mana, she casts a spell called Wind Blade, forming several magical daggers around her. Looking at that bear with all her hatred and smiling, the girl launches the attack against the beast. However, doesn't even scratch the huge creature that continues to stand staring at the two young people, leaving Tien scared. Our protagonist seemed unaffected and unafraid, saying that the monster had tough skin, and Tien thinks she would at least get Urian out of there. The boy doesn't understand what is happening, and when he looks to the side, he notices that a mass of wind is starting to form. Urian notices that the air is cooling, and the girl says it might hurt a little when our protagonist lands. She explains that she only knew how to save him by throwing him into the air because she still had to learn how to land things safely. But still smiling, Tien affirms that it's better than dying, and determined, the girl turns her attention to the monster, ready to enter immortal confrontation. Without looking back, she uses her magic to throw Urian far away to save the boy, while he can only scream. Tien remembers the moment when the boy stood before her to protect her, feeling happy about it. The girl smiles, thanking Urian for giving her the strength to be brave at least one last time. In front of the bear, the girl says that at least the boy has floated far away, and thus the bear attacks with its enormous claws. However, for some reason, the attack passes, and the girl appears already in another place, falling to the ground. Our protagonist prevents the girl from falling and hitting the ground, saving her immediately. After fainting, Tien is held in Urian's arms as he says that just as he had said, she had her moment to shine. The bear remains incredulous, not understanding how the person in front of it vanished, and Urian thinks that the guy with glasses fled because he didn't want to get involved in the mess. Because of this, he was able to save that child, and the bear, realizing its prey, immediately turns around. At the same instant, the beast rushes to attack Urien with its claws and opens its mouth with various teeth. Our protagonist says that he first has to collect the teeth, and just by swinging his fist back, the boy extinguishes the creature, splitting it in two, leaving only its jaw. The monster couldn't even see where the attack came from, and Urien thinks that before Rishal returns, he should prepare a trick, wondering where the boy went. Rishal, after all that confusion, was already in another place, accompanied by other boys, and someone asks what they were doing. Apparently, there were a total of 6 commoner children prepared to attack a certain someone. Ricky and the princess, accompanied by Era, were united, defending themselves, and the nobleman says that his sword and wand should only be used when facing monsters. One of the boys with Rishal asks Era to come with them because they would help the girl pass the exam. Ricky is confused, stating that the only person with the authority to approve or fail a student is the principal, and questions how those students plan to do that. The commoner replies that they would make the nobles fail, and all the others would pass in their places, and then one of their friends tells him to stop talking. Ricky concludes that all the commoners have banded together, and the boy who is talking retorts, stating that the nobles are to blame since they all want the commoners to fail. Once again, the boy asks Era to accompany them, and Ricky questions if the boy really thought he could defeat him if he had the girl on his side. Nervous but angry, the boy starts laughing, affirming that the ones who will defeat him aren't the boys, but again his friend asks him not to reveal the plans. However, the boy doesn't listen, revealing that it's the monsters that will defeat the nobles since the commoners are using the bear monsters as an advantage to kill him. Ricky, seeing this, continues with a serious expression, then stating that he understood. Kin's brother says he noticed the number of commoners participating this year increased, and it must all be for this plan that has been in the works for a long time. The princess says they probably knew that bear monsters get excited by the smell of blood. With a sad expression, the girl says that as a member of the royal family, she must say that this situation is unfortunate, and she laments for the boys. She adds that the future protectors of the people and soon-to-be students of the Magic Academy are using monsters for such a purpose. Then, changing her expression to anger, the girl asks her vassal Ricky to capture those people alive. The girl states that those who use the last part of the exam and the monster's attributes to endanger their fellow examinees will be investigated by the royal family, and thus the boy, with his sword in hand, goes to attack the boys. Spinning his weapon to use the blunt side, the boy manages to hit 3 of the other exam participants. The 3 commoners who were hit immediately fall unconscious to the ground without even being able to react, and Ricky stares at the others who were still standing. Seeing this, Rishal starts to get scared and desperate, asking the other 2 who were still awake with him to pour the blood over Ricky. The boys do so, but immediately the blood that was in the air stops and begins to undergo some magical effect. The commoner with glasses notices that the blood is drying up, wondering how that could be possible and who was responsible for it. The girl using that magic was the kingdom's princess, who asks all those who were still awake to surrender immediately. Saruti then states that their plan has failed, and beside her, Era holds a sword, but remains silent. Our protagonist's sister thinks that those 2 were incredible because even in that situation, she didn't need to do anything. Seeing his plan collapse, Rishal states that this year was the first and last chance to make it work since they will never have that opportunity again. The boy also says that if they get caught now, it will be the end for all of them, and the 2 commoners who were still awake start to get desperate. In an act of desperation, Rishal begins to cut his own arm with a sword, telling his friends not to give up. And even though reluctant, the boys agree, also filled with rage, and do the same. Seeing all that blood gushing from living people, the princess wondered how far those guys would go for such a foolish goal. However, before she could think about it, a group of bear monsters begins to get furious, smelling the odor, and rush toward the people. Era completely despairs, realizing there were 4 bear monsters, and she didn't even know what that monster looked like. Seeing that extremely terrifying beast, the girl questions if children like them who were there could have any chance against the monster. Rishal then states that they will not be caught so easily, cursing the nobles afterward, but Ricky remains calm and just activates his wind ability. And with just one swing of his sword, the boy manages to decapitate the 4 bears that were there in the blink of an eye. Rishal can only look up and see the lifeless bodies of the bears fall to the ground, watching his plan come to an end. Ricky calmly says that the commoners should not hurt themselves just because their plan didn't work out since they were also citizens of this kingdom and Era, watching the whole scene, thinks that Noble was on a completely different level. After a while, all the commoners are tied up and Rishal is crying, lamenting that everything went wrong. Ricky says that now that he looked at the boy, he remembered that his sister was in his group and asks where the girl was. Rishal changes his face to a frightening expression while starting to laugh hysterically. The boy says that both Ricky's sister and Era's brother were in his group, continuing to laugh for no reason. Scarily, the boy states that Urien and Teen are already dead, and that the 2 boys were nothing compared to Ricky and Era, adding that the bears must already be licking their bones by now, leaving Era and Ricky terrified. Rishal concludes by saying that if they're lucky, maybe one of them is still alive, and immediately the princess sends Ricky after the 2, stating that there could still be traces left. Desperate, Era goes after the boy, calling for her brother, but for some reason, the princess asks the girl to stay there. Trembling with worry, Era immediately stops because it is a royal order but questions the reason for this. The girl, with a cold expression, says that her younger brother is there too, and she has to go save him at any cost. With a sad expression, Saruti says she knows what it's like to hear that something might have happened to her family, but she cannot go. And coldly, the princess says the girl would only get in the way, while Era stands still for a while. The princess says that if things happen the way Rishal described and they were victims of a bear, then the incident site will have blood spread all over. And the monsters that smelled the blood will all gather there 10, maybe even 20 beasts, and it was impossible to predict exactly how many monsters would come. Saruti concludes that Ricky is skilled enough to kill them all, but fighting bears while protecting the girl will be difficult even for the noble. So she asks the girl to have a little faith in Ricky and wait there. Era remains reluctant, holding her sword firmly and calling her brother's name. After a while, the boy Ricky, with his white hair, was running in the direction he thought his sister was. He sees that his sister Tian was lying on the ground holding a bear monster's fang. However, the boy sees something that makes him quickly stop his run, and in front of him, our protagonist was dressed in a knight's mask. Looking to the side, Urian wonders what was happening since he wasn't the same guy with glasses who had previously attacked the two. Ricky notices that the boy was wearing the black brooch, so he probably was part of the group that attacked the princess. After seeing his unconscious sister, the boy wrongly assumes that the culprit was that unknown person, and questions how he dared to do that. After that, the hero rushes at Urian with his sword, which Urian quickly manages to defend against. The two swords clash, and our protagonist manages to stop the boy's attack, who wonders how the commoner had blocked his strike. Urian states that his surprise attack is dangerous, trying to calm the situation, and Ricky thinks that his reaction speed was incredible. The white-haired boy questions if the boy thought he would get away without a scratch after attacking his sister, while thinking that the secret student also imbued his sword with mana. However, our protagonist behind the mask says it wasn't him. Urian asks Ricky to calm down for a second and listen, stating that he understands why the boy confused the situation, but he wasn't one of them. However, before he could say anything else, Ricky uses his wind power, frightening Urian. A huge gust of wind in the shape of a lion attacks the small boy, who manages to dodge. Our protagonist warns Ricky that it was dangerous while thinking the attack almost broke his helmet. Chin's brother seizes the opportunity to go to his sister, conjuring a windshield around her to protect her. Ricky says that a suspicious helmeted person was with his unconscious sister, besides being a commoner, and this situation had all the elements to raise suspicions. However, as he said, the boy didn't think the guy was one of them, and Urian feels relieved, thanking him. Ricky adds that with the recognition of his opponent's excellent movements in dodging his blows twice, he will introduce himself. The boy states his name, turning around and saying that he serves the spirit of the wind, Wei, and is the eldest son of the Viscount's family. Urian comments that it is a pleasure to meet the boy, and as a form of thanks, introduces himself with a fake name, Yuri Sungdun. Ricky repeats the boy's name, stating that since he said he wasn't one of them, he would ask the boy one thing. The boy, furious with several wind blades around him, asks if the unknown boy knew who did that to his sister. With all that power, our protagonist says that there was too much wind interfering and he would reveal it. But our protagonist remembers that it was he who knocked out the girl, but it was all to protect her. So Urian gives himself up, stating that it was him, but before he could explain that he only knocked her out, Ricky was already completely irritated. The boy says that this time he will break the boy's ridiculous helmet first, rushing at the boy. Our protagonist starts to think that resolving misunderstandings wasn't that easy, sighing and accepting the situation. He thinks he needed to get the bear's molars quickly past the test phase, so he starts gripping his sword tightly. Urian tells Ricky that he will talk more with the boy next time and immediately moves out of the boy's reach. Chin's brother notices his opponent's speed, stating that he was fast. And by the way he moved, he was definitely an intermediate level knight or higher, but he had read him. And immediately the boy, surrounded by wind, appears in front of our protagonist, ready to stop him. With his lightning sword, he says his weapon was faster and immediately strikes a blow against who he thought was his opponent. However, it was as if the masked one had disappeared in a second, and the sword's strike split the air in two. Ricky thinks he had cut his enemy, but when he opens his eyes, he realizes the boy had vanished and becomes extremely confused by the whole situation. Before he could ask where the boy was, he receives a strong blow to the nape, making him slowly lose consciousness. And with that, before he could ask when he had been attacked, his body collapses and his mind completely blanks out as he faints. Seeing that scene, Urian explains that what Ricky had attacked was something like his residual image, something left by his incredible speed. After the test, the director announces that the 29th admission exam had ended, and he was in a room with other teachers. Inside, an assistant to the director says that there was an unfortunate incident where some examinees attacked others using monsters, but the princess resolved the conflict. The director, hearing this, says that they all work hard, and the magic teacher says that the quality of the students was high this year. However, a boy with pink hair disagrees, stating that the woman was wrong, saying that this year was a complete mess since the commoners were all agitated. Hearing this, the woman gets irritated, ordering Jerry to abstain from such comments since the Royal School of Magic didn't care about status. The prejudiced teacher says the woman was wrong as it was just a facade, then insults the girl's father. Jaya gets even more irritated, telling the teacher to shut up and not bring her father's name when talking about the school. The director gives a huge shout, making even his assistant's eardrums hurt, and he asks his helper to explain the rest to the teachers. Then the assistant says that in total, 29 people were approved, and he would announce the top 10. We see some nobles and commoners looking at the list of those who had passed, and the top 10 who passed were: in first place, the Princess Suruti, with her delicate appearance and pink hair like a beautiful cherry blossom. In second place was the member of the Wind Spirit clan, Ricky, who was still incredulous, talking about Yuri Sumgang, the boy with the mask. In third place was a boy with blue eyes and light hair who was a magical swordsman named Jade, and the boy was happy to have made it to the top 3. Fourth and fifth places were the younger sister Sia and the older sister Mu, who were complaining about not being in first place due to it being an individual assessment. Surprisingly, in sixth place was a commoner who was very happy, and the girl was Era, our protagonist's sister, the young woman with red hair. In seventh place was the son of the Minister of Internal Affairs, Chris, an insufferable boy who was complaining because a commoner was ranked above him. In eighth place was the troublemaker Reizo, who was annoyed about having to take the test while stating that he would kill someone before going home. In ninth place was the princess's biggest fan, the girl Hina, who was constantly admiring Suruti and commenting on the girl's beauty. And finally, in 10th place was a boy with slanted eyes named Goliath, who was saying that the long-haired lunatic Reizo seemed like a psychopath. The member of the Wind Spirit clan, Teen, who was also analyzing her chart, realizes she was in 24th place and almost didn't pass. Teen thinks her brother is amazing because he was in second place, but when she tries to find Urian's name, she can't. Our protagonist is laughing for some reason as he is completely nervous and sweating cold while thinking that this is bad. The boy realizes he had failed and the chart in front of him was saying that. The boy thinks he definitely got the bear's molar but still failed, thinking he relaxed too much with the fencing and magic tests. His sister Era comes up to him, saying she heard the boy had fallen into a trap, and the girl mentions she is happy the boy is okay. Era says that she wanted to go after her brother immediately but couldn't. However, Urian says it's okay and apologizes for worrying her. Urian says that, in any case, she was amazing for getting 6th place, and he heard there are benefits if she's in the top 10. Embarrassed, the girl thanks him and says she just thinks she was lucky and hopes to be lucky again next year. Hearing that, our protagonist finds it strange and doesn't understand why she said next year. Erin explains that she won't enroll this year because she wants to take the test next year with her brother. She adds that their goal is to pass and attend the school together, but Urian is shocked to hear that. Someone else who hears this is the noble Chris, who starts laughing at the two, saying they could fail together too. The boy, for some reason, keeps laughing and chuckling, but Urian and Era just ignore him, looking back at him. Even embarrassed, he doesn't stop laughing while continuing to mock Urian, and Urian wonders if he should beat him up now. For some reason, the teacher Jai gets irritated, stating that this is wrong and she cannot accept those results. The director comments that he thinks the results were as expected but questions if there was something more, and his assistant agrees with him. The woman explains that she's not talking about the top 10, but that she cannot accept the fact that the participant Urian didn't pass the selection. The director's assistant explains that he is the younger brother of the 6th place Era, and even though Urian brought the molars, it seems he didn't do everything alone. Rambi says that compared to his sister, the boy's fencing was completely lacking. However, Jai gets irritated,